So, good evening. Welcome to the Masterclass. It is the 22nd of August. It's a Saturday evening and it's past 5:30 p.m. Today is an interesting day. We hosted a session at the Gyan Anand Vidyalaya on the literacy project. And emerging literacy is what teachers need to learn to be relevant to the current times. How do we prepare you for the 21st century teaching skills? How do we prepare you to think beyond what is there in your textbook? Because what is there in your textbook is dead. What's there in your classroom is useless. What's there in your school does not matter. Because none of these things will prepare the child or the young person or even the teacher for tomorrow. So that's why we are very keen that people follow us, join us, and pay attention to the project, which is the Literacy Project for Educators. The Literacy Project for Educators comprises of three elements. One element is brought to you by SEBI experts, courtesy AMFI. AMFI is Association of Mutual Funds of India. SEBI is Securities Exchange Board of India. They are very keen that teachers read about financial literacy. That's a way of securing their future. It's a way of helping them get over false news. It's a way of helping them get over scam. And only when you read, you lead. Second part of our program is food literacy. If you know what you eat right India, aage badega India. And the third part is what we do, emerging literacies. So if you attend the two parts, you're only two-thirds ready. To be fully ready, you have to take part in these Saturday evening sessions. So I will do a little recap of where we were last week. That will help us all start. So we are talking of liberty in the age of big data. It's a very fascinating book. I haven't read a more fascinating book than this book on current times. The book is fantastic, 21 lessons for the 21st century. And the beautiful part is we are on chapter 3. And every time we read portions of it, the book is about 12 years old, we realize how far forward thinking Yuval Noah Harari is, the author of Sapiens, the author of Homo Deus. So our key takeaways from the last session, the human hacking formula. So what we are talking is that how do you hack humans? How do you become better humans? The intersection of biological knowledge, computing power, and data, which is B, C, D is equal to R. Enable logarithms to understand and manipulate humans better than we understand ourselves. So when you talk about human hacking, so that's what AAH is. That's what hacking is. And only when humans can see the convergence of biological knowledge, computing power, and data will they be able to survive in the near future. The myth of free will. Feelings are not free will, but biochemical logarithms for survival. This makes them hackable, undermining the liberal premise that individual feelings are the ultimate source of authority. So your feelings are already controlled. So you're really hacked. So that's the challenge. How do you stand out and talk for yourself? The shifting source of authority. Authority is moving from divine law and human feelings to big data logarithms. That's what is happening. So I'd even mentioned in the previous section that governments are also irrelevant in the age of big data. So there's no question of democracy, liberalism, communism. Across the world, when data flows, data will decide who stands where. And Kushi had asked this question about how do you vote with your feet? So people just move from one place to the other thinking which is a better place. That's how you vote with your feet. And finally, a teacher's role. In this new reality, I must say the teacher is bowled out. The teacher's primary role is to be a thought provoker. You're not an information processor anymore because you are purely working as an information processor. And that's where you lose everything. You lose your job because if you're an information processor. So critical thinking and helping students navigate. So the interesting thing today is that use AI, but know how to prompt it. That is what we are trying to teach you here. So on that note, that's a little summary. The YouTube video is available. If you missed it, please check it up there. There were some takeaways below it. Reflect on session theme, BCDR formula, which I hope you've done. The post is available. We asked people to join the WhatsApp group. We hope you have done that. And I have shared on the YouTube channel as promised, along with show notes. So last time we had reached a very interesting point. Already today, truth is defined by the top results of the Google search. This has also been happening with physical abilities, such as navigating space. People ask Google to guide them around. When they reach an intersection, their gut feeling might tell them to turn left, but Google Maps says turn right. At first, they listen to the gut feeling, turn left, get stuck in the traffic jam, and miss an important meeting. Next time, they listen to Google, turn right, and make it on time. They learn from experience to trust Google. Within a year or two, they blindly rely on whatever Google Maps tells them. And if the smartphone fails, they are completely clueless. In March 2012, three Japanese tourists in Australia decided to take a day trip to a small offshore island and drove their car straight into the Pacific Ocean. The driver, 21-year-old Yuzu Nuda, later said that she just followed the instructions of the GPS and it told us we could drive down there. It kept saying it would navigate us to a road. We got stuck. In several similar incidents, people drove into a lake or fell off a demolished bridge by apparently following GPS instructions. The ability to navigate is like a muscle. Use it or lose it. The same is true of the ability to choose spouses or professions. Every year, millions of youngsters need to decide what to study at university. This is very important and very difficult decision. You are under pressure from your parents, your friends, and your teachers who have different interests and opinions. You also have your own fears and fantasies to deal with. Your judgment is clouded and manipulated by Hollywood blockbusters, trashy novels, and sophisticated advertising campaigns. It is particularly difficult to make a wise decision because you do not really know what it takes to succeed in different professions. And you don't rely having a realistic image of your own strengths and weaknesses. What does it take to succeed as a lawyer? How do I perform under pressure? Am I a good team worker? One student might start law school because she has an inaccurate image of her own skills and an even more distorted view of what being a lawyer actually involves. You don't get to give dramatic speeches and shout, "Objection, Your Honor," all day. Meanwhile, her friend decides to fulfill a childhood dream and study professional ballet, dancing. Even though she doesn't have the necessary bone structure or discipline, years later, both deeply regret their choices. In the future, we could rely on Google to make such decisions for us. Google could tell me what I would be wasting my time in law school or in ballet school. But that I might make an excellent and very happy psychologist or plumber. Once AI makes better decisions than us about careers and perhaps even relationships, our concept of humanity and life will have to change. Humans are used to thinking about life as a drama of decision making. Liberal democracy and free market capitalism see the individual as an autonomous agent, constantly making choices about the world. Works of art, be they Shakespeare plays, Jane Austen novels, or tacky Hollywood comedies, usually revolve around the hero having to make some particularly crucial decisions: to be or not to be, to listen to my wife and kill King Duncan, or listen to my conscience and spare him, to marry Mr. Collins or Mr. Darcy. Christian and Muslim theology similarly focuses on the drama of decision making, arguing that everlasting salvations or damnation depends on making the right choice. What will happen to this view of life as we increasingly rely on AI to make decisions for us? At present, we trust Netflix to recommend movies and Google Maps to choose whether to turn left or right. But once we begin to count on AI to decide what to study, where to work, who to marry, human life will cease to be a drama of decision making. Democratic elections and free markets will make little sense. So would most religions and works of art. Anna Karenina taking out her smartphone and asking Facebook logarithm whether she should stay married to Karenin or elope with the dashing Count Vronsky. Or imagine your favorite Shakespeare play with all the crucial decisions taken by the Google logarithm. Hamlet and Macbeth will have much more comfortable lives. But what kind of life will it be exactly? Do we have models for making sense of such a life? Think it's an interesting turn in the book, and I think this is a very fascinating book. It must be read by any and everyone who has to survive in this century. As authority shifts from humans to logarithms, we may no longer see the world as the playground of autonomous individuals, struggling to make the right choices. Instead, we might perceive the entire universe as a flow of data, see organisms as little more than biochemical logarithms, and believe that humanity's cosmic vocation is to create an all encompassing data processing system and then merge into it. So, you see what is happening today. Every country is setting up data centers, every country is using energy hungry data centers, which they claim will help them learn and deliver more efficiently. And believe me, these are so harmful for the environment. And on one hand, we are saying let's conserve the environment. So this is the dichotomy we live in. A data center generates so much heat, it generates eats up energy like hell, absolutely. Data centers across the country will shake up the electric grid. We may go back to the era of blackouts and dark days as data centers suck up more and more energy. Because when we were developing the country's grid, we never knew that data centers would come up. So, this is an interesting point. How it will happen? I'm sure innovation will happen. I'm sure we'll become more efficient in energy distribution. So, human beings will continue innovating. Already today, we are becoming tiny chips inside a giant data processing system that nobody really understands. Every day, I absorb countless data bits through emails, tweets, and articles, process the data, and transmit back new bits through more emails, tweets, and articles. I don't really know where I fit into the great scheme of things and how my bits of data connect with the bits of producing by billions of other humans and computers. I don't have time to find out because I'm too busy answering all these emails. Interesting. The philosophical car. People might object that logarithms could never make important decisions for us because important decisions usually involve an ethical dimension, and the logarithms understand ethics. Yet, there is no reason to assume that logarithms won't be able to outperform the average human even in ethics. Already today, as devices like smartphones and autonomous vehicles undertake decisions that used to be a human monopoly, they start to grapple with the same kind of ethical problems that have bedeviled humans for millennia. Bedevil means foxed us literally. For example, suppose two kids chasing a ball jump into in the front of the self-driving car. Based on its lightning calculations, the logarithm driving the car concludes that the only way to avoid hitting the two kids is to swerve into the opposite lane and risk colliding with an oncoming truck. The logarithm calculates that in such a case, there is a 70% chance that the owner of the car, who is fast asleep in the back seat, would be killed. What should the logarithm do? Philosophers have been arguing about such trolley problems for millennia. Philosophers have been arguing, sorry about that. Philosophers have been arguing about such trolley problems for millennia. They are called trolley problems because the textbook examples in modern philosophical debates refer to a runaway trolley, a car racing down the railway track rather than a self-driving car. Up till now, these arguments have had embarrassingly little impact. Just give me a moment. That's
Yeah.
sorry, Shalini, that was your boss.
Okay.
And
She must
bosses
be
don't know how
wanting
to
to.
stop. I said, and bosses don't know how to stop. They can't keep up with communication, despite the fact it's plastered everywhere that I'm having a session. So anyway, that's the boss. So if the boss reads,
Yeah.
we will all read. So tell the boss I said that on recording. Okay, here we are. So one of the nastiest
Will do.
experiments in the history of the social sciences was conducted in December 1970 on a group of students in the Princeton Theological Seminary who were training to become ministers at the Presbyterian Church. So this is a church sect. We even have a Presbyterian church in Dehradun. So where students come and study, they almost do a graduation. So that's a seminary. They do Bible studies. Each student was asked to hurry to a distant lecture hall and there give a talk on the Good Samaritan parable, which tells how a Jew traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho was robbed and beaten by criminals, who then left them to die by the side of the road. After some time, a priest and a Levite passed by nearby, but both ignored the man. In contrast, a Samaritan, a member of the sect which despised by the Jews, stopped when he saw the victim, took care of him, and saved his life. The moral of the parable is that people's merits should be judged by their actual behavior rather than their religious affiliations. So, this is an interesting quote from today. And I know it's a little provocative, so I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to post this quote here in my masterclass, and I want you to think about it. It's at a very important point today, and I'm sure this will generate thought in you. The moral of the parable is that people's merit should be judged by their actual behavior rather than by their religious affiliation. I know it's a sensitive topic, and you will find that. So just check that out. You will see how things go. And do share your thoughts on this if you have your thoughts. It'll be quite interesting to read. The eager young Samaritans rushed to the lecture hall, contemplating on the way how best to explain the moral of the Good Samaritan parable. So this became a study, and they rushed to the hall to explain the model of the Good Samaritan parable. But the experimenters planted in the path a shabbily dressed person who was sitting slumped in a doorway with his head down and his eyes closed. As each unsuspecting seminarian was hurrying past, the victim coughed and groaned pitifully. Most seminarians did not even stop to inquire what was wrong with the man, let alone offer any help. The emotional crisis created by the need to hurry to the lecture hall trumped the moral obligation to help strangers in distress. Very interesting point of inflection. At this point, I apologize. I have to keep my WhatsApp on because I use it with the session. So when these calls come, they are a distraction. I need to find a way on to stop WhatsApp calls. So let's see how I can do that better next time. I'm sorry about this interruption today. Human emotions trump philosophical theories in countless and other situations. This makes the ethical and philosophical history of the world a rather depressing tale of wonderful ideals and less than ideal behavior. How many Christians actually turn the other cheek? How many Buddhists actually rise above egoistic obsessions? How many Jews actually love their neighbors as themselves? That's just the way selection has shaped Homo sapiens. Like all mammals, Homo sapiens uses emotions to quickly make life and death decisions. We have inherited our anger, our fear, and our lust from millions of ancestors, all of whom passed the most rigorous quality control test of natural selection. Unfortunately, what was good for survival and reproduction in the African savanna a million years ago does not necessarily make for responsible behavior in the 21st century motorway. Distracted, angry, and anxious human drivers kill more than a million people in traffic accidents every year. We can send all our philosophers, prophets, and priests to preach ethics to these drivers. But on the road, mammalian emotions and savanna instincts will still take over. Consequently, seminarians in a rush will ignore people in distress, and drivers in a crisis will run over hapless pedestrians. This disjunction between the seminary and the road is one of the biggest practical problems in ethics. Immanuel Kant, John Stuart Mill, and John Rawls can sit in some cozy university hall and discuss theoretical problems in ethics for days. But would their conscience actually be implemented by stressed out drivers caught in a split second emergency? Perhaps Michael Schumacher, the Formula One champion, who is sometimes hailed as the best driver in history, had the ability to think about philosophy while racing a car. But most of us aren't Schumacher. Computer logarithms, however, have not been shaped by selection, natural selection, and they have neither emotions nor gut instincts. Hence, in moments of crisis, they could follow ethical guidelines much better than humans, provided we find a way to code ethics in precise numbers and statistics. If we teach Kant, Mill, and Rawls to write code, they can carefully program the self driving car in their cozy laboratory and be certain that the car will follow their commandments on the highway. In effect, every car will be driven by Michael Schumacher and Immanuel Kant rolled into one. So, what they're really doing is Michael Schumacher has the prowess of a great driver, while Kant has the prowess of a philosopher. So if the automated cars, which are already there today, this is written 12 years back, like I said earlier, could understand philosophy. And by the way, human brain is almost already been created in today's day. And there's a lab test going on. So what you see today is happening in quantum computing. What you see today is happening in this new world of AI and the GPUs. The GPUs are almost faster than the human brain today. Thus, if you program a self driving car to stop and help strangers in distress, it will do so come hell or high water, unless, of course, you insert an exception clause for infernal or high water scenarios. Similarly, if your self driving car is programmed to swerve to the opposite lane in order to save the two kids in its path, you can bet your life that this is exactly what it will do, which means that when designing their self-drive cars, Toyota or Tesla will be transforming a theoretical problem in the philosophy of ethics into a practical problem of engineering. Let me take a pause here and tell you the car I drive today is very much here. Now, the car has sensors all around and it just won't let me hit anyone onto the ground. It does everything in the car today to hold me. So the car has a particular ADAS system which holds me from hitting people. But what may happen is, as our cars are not distant enough, I may get hit from behind. That's a different story. Now, that's a typical scenario in a crowded road, but the ADAS system works beautifully in spaces where there is enough driving space. You have saved millions of lives by the new ADAS system, even at high speed driving. I will give you an example. Today, the cars are so intelligent that if you don't wear your seatbelt, they won't move. In my car, if people in the rear seat don't put on a seat belt, the car sounds all kinds of alarms. It makes so it's understanding the philosophical human needs. It's understanding the feelings that I will end up injuring someone. So let's go ahead. Granted, the philosophical logarithm will never be perfect. Mistakes will still happen, resulting in injuries, deaths, and extremely complicated lawsuits. For the first time in history, you might be able to sue a philosopher for the unfortunate results of his or her theories, because for the first time in history, you could prove a direct causal link between philosophical ideas and real life events. So, the processor, the logarithm, if it's designed by a philosopher and it acts in a particular way, when you do a lawsuit, you could actually end up suing the philosopher. However, in order to take over from human drivers, the logarithms won't have to be perfect. They will have to be better than the humans. Given the human drivers kill more than 1 million people each year, that isn't such a tall order. When all is said and done, would you rather the car next to you as driven by a drunk teenager or the Schumacher Kant team? So Schumacher Kant team is like the brain of a car. So Schumacher's skills of driving and Kant's skills of thinking have been put together in a car. The same logic is true not just of driving but of some other situations. Take, for example, job applications. In the 21st century, the decision whether to hire somebody for a job will increasingly made by logarithms. We cannot rely on the machine to set the relevant ethical standards. Humans will still need to do that. But once we decide on an ethical standard in the job market that it is wrong to discriminate against black people or against women, for example, we can rely on machines to implement and maintain this standard better than humans. A human manager may know and even agree that it is unethical to discriminate against black people and women. But then, when a black woman applies for a job, the manager subconsciously discriminates against her and decides not to hire her. If we allow computers to evaluate job applications, the computer is completely ignore race and gender. We can be certain that the computer will indeed ignore these factors because computers don't have a subconscious. Computers don't have a subconscious. Let's take a note of this interesting fact and even put this phrase down, and maybe you could delve at this as a thought. It's interesting, some of these simple statements make you think so much. So, check this thought out also and share with us what you think of this. Of course, it won't be easy to write code for evaluating job applications, and there is always a danger that the engineers will somehow program their own subconscious bias into the software. Yet, once we discover such mistakes, it would probably be far easier to debug the software than to rid humans of their racist and misogynistic biases. Misogynist bias, sorry. We saw the rise of the artificial intelligence might push most humans out of job market, including drivers and traffic police. When rowdy humans are replaced by obedient logarithms, traffic police will be redundant. However, there might be some new openings in philosophers because their skills, hitherto devoid of such big market value, will suddenly be in very high demand. So, if you want to study something that will guarantee a good job in the future, maybe philosophy is not such a bad gamble. It's very interesting where we are going. It's important for us to understand all this. And I think you have to think very, very deeply when I read here and I talk about all this and how the cars are going and what will happen and what else is happening in the world is actually absolutely fantastic. So, philosophy, by the way, is I've just finished reading a book, and it's a book about empathy. It's very hard philosophy, and I had mentioned this in a group. So, empathy is very interesting. So, as philosophers understand empathy, they can actually take decisions, they can preempt your thought. That is the beauty, and that's how AI works. So, AI is working that deeply. Of course, philosophers seldom agree on the right course of action. Few trolley problems will have been solved in the satisfaction of all philosophers and consequentialist thinkers such as John Stuart Mill, who judge actions by consequences. So our actions are always judged by consequences. If you all remember, we had discussed mind, consciousness, and thought. Your mind absorbs, your consciousness develops, your thought prompts you to do an action. So that's how consequences happen. Hold quite different opinions too deontologists such as Immanuel Kant, who judge actions by absolute rules. Would Tesla have to actually take a stance on such naughty matters in order to produce a car? Now imagine what Tesla and the BYDs have to think when they are making cars which are going to be on the road today. How they have to have people with such deep thinking. And I want to take a pause here. I'll put a bookmark and I will remind you again of that video Think Deeply, which we shot some weeks back. The video today is almost 55,000 plays on our YouTube channel. It's a video of 1 minute and 16 seconds. And believe me, every video, every sentence, every word in the video will make you think. And it's a video for helping you prepare for the 21st century. A lot of effort was gone on to create the video content. So it took us almost 3.5 months of script writing and shooting to give you just what we made ultimately, more than half was made by AI. So just about 30% is human work in it. So you can well imagine how far the philosophy and feelings have come into play, and even in terms of emotions when you have technology. Well, maybe Tesla will just leave it to the market. Tesla will produce two models of the self drive cars, the Tesla altruist and the Tesla egoist. In an emergency, the altruist sacrifices its owner to the great good, whereas the egoist does everything in the power to save its owner, even if it means killing the two kids. Customers will then be able to buy a car that best fits their favorite. This is interesting. Is this a choice you even want to make? Just think of the arguments you are going to have with your husband about which box to tick. So maybe the state should intervene to regulate the market and lay down an ethical code binding all self driving cars. Some lawmakers will doubtless be thrilled by the opportunity to finally make laws that will always follow to the letter. Other lawmakers may be alarmed by such unprecedented and totalitarian responsibility. After all, throughout history, the limitations of law enforcement provided a welcome check on the biases, mistakes, and excesses of lawmakers. And an extremely lucky thing, the laws against homosexuality and against blasphemy are only partially enforced. Do we really want a system in which the decisions of fallible politicians become inexorable as gravity? So, are we heading for digital dictatorship? Yes, let's try and answer this question. Now, what this is talking about, the chapter said liberty and big data. What liberty means in this age of big data. And it's important, maybe we are entering into digital dictatorship. Today, the Prime Minister is also not able to decide because the digital technology is taken over his thought. Digital dictatorship. AI often frightens people because they don't trust the AI to remain obedient. We have seen too many science fiction movies about robots rebelling against their human masters, running amok in the streets and slaughtering everyone. Yet, the real problem with robots is exactly the opposite. We should fear them because they will probably always obey their masters and never rebel. There is nothing wrong with blind obedience, of course, as long as the robots happen to serve benign masters. Even in warfare, reliance on killer robots could ensure that for the first time in history, the laws of war would actually be obeyed on the battlefield. Human soldiers are sometimes driven by their emotions to murder, pillage, and rape in violations of the law of war. We usually associate emotions with compassion, love, and empathy. But in wartime, the emotions that take control are all too often fear, hatred, and cruelty. Since robots have no emotions, they could be trusted to always adhere to the dry letter of the military code and never be swayed by personal fears and hatreds. We are seeing today how drones work. Drones are nothing but robots. On the 16th of March 1968, a company of American soldiers went berserk in the South Vietnamese village of My Lai and massacred about 400 civilians. This war crime resulted from the local initiative of men who had been involved in jungle guerrilla warfare for several months. It did not serve any strategic purpose and contravened both the legal code and the military policy of the USA. It was the fault of human emotions. If the USA had deployed killer robots in Vietnam, the massacre of My Lai would never have occurred. Nevertheless, before we rush to develop and deploy killer robots, we need to remind ourselves that the robots always reflect and amplify the qualities of their code. If the code is restrained and benign, the robots will probably be a huge improvement over the average human soldier. Yet, if the code is ruthless and cruel, the results will be catastrophic. The real problem with robots is not their own artificial intelligence, but rather the natural stupidity and cruelty of their human masters. In July 1995, Bosnian Serbs massacred more than 8,000 Muslim Bosniaks around the town of Srebrenica. Unlike the haphazard Mr. Lime massacre, the Srebrenica killings were a protracted and well organized operation that reflected Bosnian Serbs' policy to ethically cleanse Bosnia of Muslims. In the Bosnian Serbs had killer robos in 1995, it would likely have been the atrocity worse rather than better. Not one robot would have had a moment's hesitation carrying out whatever orders it received and would not have spared the life of a single Muslim child out of feelings of compassion or disgust or mere lethargy. A ruthless dictator armed with such killer robots will never have a fear that his soldiers will turn against him, no matter how heartless and crazy his orders. A robot army would probably have strangled the French Revolution in its cradle in 1789. And if in 2011 Hosni Mubarak had had a contingent of killer robots, he would have unleashed them on the populace without fear of defection. Similarly, an imperialist government relying on a robot army could wage unpopular wars without any concern that its robbers might lose their motivation or that their family might stage protests. If the USA had had killer robots in the Vietnam War, the My Lai massacre might have been prevented, but the war itself would have dragged on for many more years because the American government would have had fewer worries about demoralized soldiers, massive anti war demonstrations, or a movement of veteran robots against the war. Some American citizens might still have objected to the war, but without the fear of being drafted themselves, the memory of personally committing atrocities, or the painful loss of dear ones, the protesters would probably have been less numerous and less committed. These kinds of problems are far less relevant to autonomous civilian vehicles because no car manufacturer will maliciously program its vehicles to target and kill people. Yet, autonomous weapon systems are catastrophe waiting to happen because too many governments tend to be ethically corrupt, if not downright evil. The danger is not restricted to killing machines. Surveillance systems could be equally risky. In the hands of the benign government, powerful surveillance logarithms can be the best thing that ever happened to humankind. Yet, the same big data algorithms might also empower a future big brother so that we might end up with the Orwellian surveillance regime in which all individuals are monitored all the time. We recently saw how facial recognition was used in protests in Delhi, which happened very recently, and how we were able to misuse this technology and actually identify people and follow them and ruthlessly challenge them in very simple human circumstances. Indeed, we might end up with something that even Orwell could barely imagine, a total surveillance regime that follows not just all our external activities and utterances, but can even go under our skin to observe our inner experiences. Consider, for example, what the Kim regime of North Korea might do with the new technology. In the future, each North Korean citizen might be required to wear a biometric bracelet that monitors everything you do and say, as well as your blood pressure and brain activity. By using our growing understanding of the human brain and using the immense power of machine learning, the North Korean regime might be able, for the first time in the history, to gauge the each and every citizen is thinking each and every moment. If you look at the picture of Kim Jong Un and the biometric sensors pick up the telltale signs of anger, higher blood pressure, increased activity in the amygdala, you are in the gulag tomorrow morning. Gulag is a prison. Granted, due to its isolation, the North Korean regime might have difficulty developing the required technology by itself. However, the technology might be pioneered in more tech savvy nations and copied or bought by the North Koreans and other backward dictatorships. Both China and Russia are constantly improving their surveillance tools, as are a number of democratic countries ranging from the USA to home country of Israel. Israel is home to Yuval Noah Harari. Nicknamed the Startup Nation, Israel has an extremely vibrant high-tech sector and a cutting-edge cybersecurity industry. At the same time, it is also locked into a deadly conflict with the Palestinians, and at least one of its leaders, generals, and citizens might be happy to create a total surveillance regime in the West Bank as soon as they have the necessary technology. Already today, whenever Palestinians make a phone call, post something on Facebook, or travel from one city to another, they are likely to be monitored by Israel microphones, cameras, drones, or spy software. The gathered data is then analyzed with the aid of big data, logarithms. This helps the Israeli security forces to pinpoint and neutralize potential threats without having to place too many boots on the ground. The Palestinians may administer some towns and villages in their West Bank, but the Israelis control the sky, the airwaves, and the cyberspace. It therefore takes surprisingly few Israeli soldiers to effectively control about 2.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank. In one tragic economic incident in October 2017, Palestinian laborers posted in his private Facebook account a picture of himself in a workplace alongside a bulldozer. Adjacent to the image, he wrote, "Good morning." An automatic logarithm made a small error that transliterated the Arabic letter instead of Yeshbum, which means good morning. The logarithm identified the letters as Yajbum, which means heard them. Suspecting that the man might be a terrorist intending to use bulldozer to run people over, Israel security forces swiftly arrested him. He was released after they realized that the logarithm made a mistake. But the offending Facebook post was nevertheless taken down. You can never be too careful. What Palestinians are experiencing today in the West Bank might be a primitive preview to the billion will eventually experience all over the planet. In the late 20th century, democracies usually outperformed dictatorship because democracies were better at data processing. Democracy diffuses the power to process information and make decisions among many people and institutions, whereas dictatorship concentrates information and power in one place. Given 20th century technology, it is inefficient to concentrate too much information and power in one place. Nobody had the ability to process all the information fast enough and make the right decisions. This was part of the reason why Soviet Union made far worse decisions than the United States, and why the Soviet economy lagged far behind the American economy. However, soon AI might swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. AI makes it possible to process enormous amount of information centrally. Indeed, AI might make centralized systems far more efficient than diffuse systems because machine learning works better and more information it can analyze. If you concentrate all the information relating to a billion people in one database, disregarding all privacy concerns, you can train much better algorithms than if you respect individual privacy and have in your database only partial information on a million people. For example, if an authoritarian government orders all its citizens to have their DNA scanned and to share all their medical data with some central authority, it would gain an immense advantage in genetics and medical research over societies in which medical data is strictly private. The main handicap of authoritarian regimes is the 20th century. The attempt to concentrate all information in one place might become their decisive advantage in the 21st century. So, this is what is happening today, by the way. And this data is concentrating. As logarithms come to know us well, authoritarian governments would gain absolute control over their citizens, even more so than in Nazi Germany, and resistance to such regimes might be utterly impossible. Not only will the regime know exactly how you feel, it could make you feel whatever it wants. The dictator might not be able to provide citizens with healthcare of equality, but it could make them love him and hate him as opponents. Democracy in its present form cannot survive the merger of biotech and infotech. Either democracy will successfully reinvent itself in the radically new form, or humans will come to live in digital dictatorship. That's the pause for today. We will start from here. I will mark this page as your bookmark. I'll share the bookmark right away so that we don't lose. Here goes the bookmark. There comes back my WhatsApp, and the bookmark goes into your WhatsApp. And the date for the bookmark will be August the 29th of August the 29th, 2026. So your bookmark is already there for next week. It's been a great pleasure reading this. It's very fascinating how this book is evolving, how we are understanding the changes in the century. And this is actually happening today. And that's why I feel that teachers have to be very sensitive to what's happening around them. What we are seeing here is the harsh reality of today. And this is the call you and me have to take. How much can we actually take this? What is good? What is bad? It's always every day. There's a day and night every day. There's a good moment and a bad moment. To understand a good moment, there has to be a bad moment. So, technology for human good, that's what we are all trying to put together. And that's the beauty. On that note, I want to do two things before we go. One, say a big hi to Gurdeep Kaur, who has just become a principal. So, Gurdeep, we love you. Thanks for being with us
Thank
for
you,
a,
sir. Thank
and
you.
for a few seasons. It's such a pleasure to have you be my co-host. And I can't thank God enough to find such beautiful teachers as you. And I'm sure we're in a better position as we're all thinking here. And that is what it's all about. But remember one thing, to think deeply, you have to read deeply. And that's why we keep saying read and lead. Rekha ji, how are you feeling? That was my second question for the day.
Sir, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you weren't well last week. I hope you're better now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Pawan, for saying all those good words about informative session. Thank you. Let me just get to the chat and see if I have to answer anyone. There are some three, four alerts in the chat. Very informative session. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you for that. There is a point from Pooja Mazumdar. Thank you. Thought provocation. That's the whole idea. Thank you, Ritu. I don't think there's any other question. Anyone wants to speak? You're welcome. We have a moment. We can pause. We should be able to cull out 45 minutes from today's session. And my apologies for the small disturbances.